In normal times, the idea of buying a Christmas tree in mid-November might be met with an eye roll. But these aren't normal times, and at the Camden Garden Centre, they say the demand this year is unprecedented.
But I would happily buy a tree at the start of November if I was allowed.
But you're stuffing it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, it does feel a bit different. I think I guess people are looking for like something to pick them up and, feel better about everything going on. So, yeah, a week early is fine.
Today it was confirmed that all 4 UK nations have agreed a shared goal to relax the rules this Christmas to let families meet for a few days. But earlier the Chancellor emphasised it wouldn't be Christmas as we know it.
Frustrating as it is for all of us, Christmas is not going to be normal this year. But that said, the Prime Minister and everyone else were looking at ways to see how families can spend some time with each other over Christmas period. Obviously, that's something that we would like to do, and it's been a difficult year for all of us. But it's, as I said, it's not going to be a normal Christmas this year.
Back at the Garden Centre, there's mixed views on what should happen.
I'm actually not against the idea of just kind of delaying it or just kind of expecting people to
just continue as we are now.
Yeah, and just be more restricted. I don't think it's worth the risk in some senses.
I think people will do what they're going to do. And unless the government say the police are going to knock on your door on Christmas Day and they're going to break up your party of 7 and Granny, then people are going to do it.
Today's announcement is a reminder that no politician wants to be remembered for cancelling Christmas. Nevertheless, there's no illusion that getting together for the festive period may come at a high price.
I think the cost could be phenomenal, and we could undo all the pain and expenses of having had lockdown number 1 as well as lockdown number 2. We've got to get it right. We cannot go into lockdown, unlock, lockdown again. Vaccines are almost around the corner, and it is just worth enduring a little bit more.
The government confirmed today that England will return to a tiered system when the national lockdown ends on the 2nd of December. They'll announce the new tiers on Thursday and where each area will sit within them. Looking at the government's latest data, rates of infection in some parts of the Midlands and the North East remain stubbornly high. But the highest levels are in the North West, Yorkshire and the Humber.
The tier systems never worked properly, and we know that because whatever happens in high number of cases regions eventually percolates to other regions where they've got fewer number of cases. What we really need is clear, unambiguous, strict advice, which is to reduce interactions with fellow human beings.
So turkey with the family this Christmas may be back on the menu. But if you're hoping for a kiss under the mistletoe at the Christmas party, well, that will have to wait for next year.
Well, earlier I spoke to Andy Burnham, the Labour Mayor of Greater Manchester, and I asked him if the government is consulting him on these plans.
They've been talking to officers, but no contact with me, Christian. So, to be honest, I'm disappointed about the lack of any real consultation and worried about talk of a tougher Tier 3. This will be very, very hard for Greater Manchester to take, given that we've been under restrictions now for getting on for even 5 months. My worry is that the government are going to go for a very tough approach up towards Christmas so that they can loosen over Christmas and then go back into a very tough approach in January. Now, I don't think the majority of people here would want that. I think we need a kind of proportionate approach all the way through December and January. I think most people would say that that would be better.
There does seem to be some overlap between what you're saying and what this group of Conservative MPs, the COVID research group, are also saying.
There is some overlap there, and I think we would both probably point to the World Health Organization, who say that you can't ask people to live under perpetual lockdown or just ongoing restrictions. As I say, people in Greater Manchester have been under them for months. Our cases are coming down now, Christian. We're seeing reductions in all 10 of our boroughs. I'm not saying get rid of everything, but I am saying keep it proportionate and targeted. We would like a power here to close businesses that are not COVID secure. So don't have blanket closures, but allow us quickly to target those that are posing the greatest risk to the public. We think that would be a better approach.
The government's confirmed this afternoon that its aim is to allow friends and family to meet up at Christmas. Do you think that, that it's worth the extra lockdown effectively either side of Christmas in order to have a few days of potentially super spreading?
We'll have to see what the government are proposing, but I would say you've got to look at December and January as a whole and have measures in place that will take us right the way through without having to go into a pretty difficult lockdown in January, which I think people will struggle with. So modest mixing, maybe one household allowed to join with another, possibly. But I wouldn't go any further than that if I were the government.
You and the Conservative Northern MPs have all been asking for more evidence-based policy. Do you accept that that's very difficult? Because we do not have enough data over a long enough period of time over each particular policy intervention to really know what works yet.
Yes, and I have tried to give the benefit of the doubt to the government at times, recognising that it is a really challenging situation. The difficulty arises when they act without evidence, and they've done that, in my view, on the 10 p.m. curfew. I said very clearly at the start, as did so many other people, that actually it was probably likely to be contributing to the spread of the virus. And the mood music is today that it might be about to be scrapped. Well, I think it should be. By all means, the government will need to move quickly, but do act on the evidence. Don't just do something to be seen to be doing something.
Andy Burnham, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, I then spoke to Dr. Rosalind Eggo, an infectious disease modeller at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and a member of the SPI-M group of scientists, which provides evidence on the spread of COVID-19 to SAGE, the group of scientists who advise the government. Well, I began by asking her what the data can tell us about the impact that the current lockdown is having on transmission.
So we have some early indicators, some early positive signs that the reproduction number is starting to come down in most areas, but it's not down below 1 yet. We have seen some decreases in cases, but as we learned from the first lockdown, this is quite a slow disease. The point when you take action, you don't see the effects in cases for about a week, in hospitalizations for a couple of weeks. So we don't always see straight away what impact we're having on transmission.
Does R need to be below 1 at the point you stop the measures, or can you assume that you can stop the measures and it will keep coming down for a little while?
It's really difficult to know, but we do need the reproduction number to be below 1, but we also need the total number of cases in the community to be much lower than it is now. So the risk of there being a really big problem, so your hospitals being in trouble, is a combination both of the reproduction number, which is how quickly cases grow, but also how many there are. So if you have a very high number to start with, then that reproduction number needs to bring it down, bring the total number of cases down before you can start to relax.
Now, MPs who are resistant to the idea of further restrictions are demanding evidence. They're saying, tell us why closing hospitality works, or why curfews work, or why closing gyms work. Do you have that kind of detail, evidence yet to justify each measure?
It's difficult to say what part of each intervention has the biggest effect when there's a lot of things going on in different places at different times. What we have seen from the interventions in Wales and Northern Ireland that were 2 weeks before those in England is that those interventions do seem to have worked. And so we, in England, where we're about 2 weeks later, need a little bit more time to really see the effect.
The government has said, though, that the current lockdown is going to end on December the 2nd, and we will enter this new phase. What you seem to be saying is this new phase also needs to be very restrictive in order to have the mixing at Christmas that people want.
We'll have to see what kind of interventions come out and what the plan is. Right now, we're seeing some early encouraging signs, but we really definitely want that community prevalence lower. We want that reproduction number safely below 1 before we start talking about the next stage.
Right, but whatever happens, once more people start mixing at Christmas, that is going to lead to a rise in infections.
Unfortunately, that's the reality of infectious diseases, that when you mix people together, especially if there's high community prevalence, then they transmit the infection.
It seems to be that our desire for clear mathematical and scientific answers is just a bit unrealistic at the moment. We're asking too much of you, aren't we?
So I really understand that people want certainty it's really difficult because this is, there's a lot of unknowns. Right now, we're at a point where there's a high community prevalence, reproduction number above 1, and yet we want to ask the question about Christmas. Well, right now, we need to deal with the problem we're having at the moment and then look to the future.
Dr. Ego, thank you very much.